Hey, I'm Amber Collins. I'm 32. And last month I got that text again, the same one I've gotten every year like clockwork. Sorry, honey, there's just not enough space for you at the Lake Tahoe retreat this year. It hit the same way it always does. But this time, something inside me cracked wide open. Just a few hours later, I found out the truth. My parents had invited 108 people, 118 people. All 6 of my siblings invited, with their kids, their in-laws' cousins. Hell, even some family friends of friends made the list. But me? I was once again the only one left out. And let me be clear, it's not like I live halfway across the globe or ghosted everyone. I live in San Francisco, a few hours away. I'm a successful designer. I run my own studio. But year after year, I'm somehow forgotten. At this point, it's not an oversight, it's a pattern. And this year, I finally decided that pattern ends with me. Before we go any further, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. And if you've ever been the family outcast, hit that subscribe button, because trust me, this is a story you're going to want to see through to the end. Now let's back up a bit. The Lake Tahoe retreat isn't just some family vacation. It's a big deal. It started almost 40 years ago with my grandparents, Eleanor and Robert Collins. They went there for their honeymoon and absolutely fell in love with the place. The pine trees, the stillness of the water, the sense of magic in the air. Grandpa Robert would always say, "This will be our family's special place." And he meant it. When I was 6, they actually bought a huge lakefront property, a 10-acre slice of heaven. That became the backdrop of all my best childhood memories. I can still hear the sounds of our summers there. Me and my siblings sprinting down to the private dock at sunrise, laughter bouncing off the water. My oldest brother Jake organizing these epic scavenger hunts across the property. Amanda and Heather would help Grandma cook massive meals in the kitchen. Homemade pies, sizzling roasted chicken, you name it. The twins, Blake and Brian, were always climbing trees they had no business climbing. And little Lily, the youngest, never left Grandpa's side, watering plants, trimming hedges, chasing butterflies. And then there was me. I wasn't the loud one, I wasn't the troublemaker. I was the sketchpad kid, the one who saw the world a little differently. And Grandpa, he saw me. He'd take me on what he called our artist walks, just the 2 of us. We'd wander the grounds and I'd draw whatever caught my eye. Mountains, trees, reflections in the water. He even set up a little easel for me on the wraparound porch. Sometimes he'd just sit there beside me, saying nothing, just watching me create. "You have a gift, Amber," he used to say. "Don't let anyone tell you it's not a worthy path." So when I chose art school instead of the business program my parents wanted, he was the only one who clapped the loudest, Grandma too. My dad, Richard Collins, wasn't exactly thrilled. He runs a regional banking company and made his feelings very clear. Artists don't pay mortgages. And Mom, Patricia? She was his echo, as always. Same disapproving nod, same tight-lipped smile. Then came my sophomore summer. Both grandparents passed, first Grandma, then Grandpa, just a few months apart. It felt like someone ripped the soul out of our family. But they left the house in Tahoe to my parents, with a letter. A wish that the annual family gatherings would continue, that we'd keep coming together in that sacred place. And we did, at first. But something shifted. When my parents took over, it wasn't about family anymore. The guest list ballooned. Colleagues, business partners, social climbers. What used to feel like a warm, open home started to feel like a sponsored event. And even though they never approved of my career path, I was out here grinding, taking freelance gigs while still in school, building a portfolio before I could legally rent a car. By the time I graduated, I was already running with real clients. Today, I head a thriving design studio, working with everything from scrappy tech startups to luxury brands you'd recognize instantly. But none of that seemed to matter to them. 3 years ago, I got the first exclusion text. 2 weeks before the retreat, "We're keeping it small this year, honey. Just immediate family, not enough space, maybe next summer." I was crushed, but I made excuses for them. Maybe they really are scaling back. Maybe they need space. I told myself it was okay. But that night I cried myself to sleep. Then came the truth. Instagram photos, Facebook albums, over 60 people smiling in front of the dock, including extended cousins, friends, and their friends. I wasn't too busy. I wasn't forgotten. I was excluded. When I casually mentioned the photos to Amanda, she got defensive. Said, "Well, Mom and Dad just assumed you'd be busy with work. You're always so busy." Each of my siblings has their own thing going with our parents. Jake, he's 38, followed Dad into banking, lives 3 blocks from our childhood home, golden child. Amanda, 36, married a plastic surgeon. Think Real Housewives meets Martha Stewart. Perfect in every way, just like Mom. Blake and Brian, the twins, 34, of course. Dad's idea. They both work at some massive firm downtown. Heather's 30, pediatrician, married to a doctor. Parents love that. Lily, the youngest, 28, schoolteacher, married to her college sweetheart, who's now a financial advisor. Then there's me, 32, single, no kids, and running a creative business instead of holding a real job, according to my dad. Black sheep, always on the outside looking in. For 2 more years, it happened again. Same text, same lie, same gut punch, and every time, the party photos flooded in like clockwork. I told myself I was fine. I threw myself into work. I built client lists, won awards, pretended it didn't sting. But this year, everything changed. It started on a quiet Thursday evening. I was scrolling Instagram, just mindlessly tapping through stories while waiting for my takeout to arrive. That's when I saw it. Blake's post. He had uploaded a photo of what looked like a printed itinerary laid out on a glossy wooden table with a latte nearby. The caption, "Can't wait. Biggest Collins gathering yet." At first, I just stared at it. Then I zoomed in. It was a detailed schedule, group activities, themed dinners, boat rides, and at the top, bold and unapologetic, 118 confirmed guests. 118. I counted the names that weren't blurred. Jake and his wife, Amanda and her surgeon husband, the twins, Heather, Lily, all there. Cousins I hadn't seen in years, my mom's sister and her whole family, even my dad's college roommate, Greg, and Greg's wife. But not me. I felt my stomach drop, like I just stepped off a curb I didn't see coming. I texted Blake, trying to play it cool. Me, retreat looks amazing. Huge group this year. He texted back almost immediately. Blake, yeah, gonna be epic. Mom and Dad went all out. I swallowed hard and typed another question. Me 118 people? Must be packed. How do you know the exact number? Dad's been stressing about it, had to rent 2 extra houses for overflow. That did it. 2 extra houses, and still apparently not enough space for me? I couldn't breathe. I put my phone down and walked to the window. Outside, the San Francisco skyline glittered like a lie. They had rented extra properties. It was never about space. It was about me. I slid down the wall and sat on the floor, my knees pulled to my chest. My breath came in short, shaky bursts. Tears blurred my vision. I didn't even try to stop them. I replayed every little moment that suddenly felt enormous. The time my parents skipped my National Art Award ceremony because one of the twins had a playoff game. The Christmas where everyone got personalized gifts and I got a Visa gift card. The family portraits where I was placed on the edge like I was an accessory, not a person. When I could finally move, I called Grace. Grace is my best friend, my soul sister since art school. We've weathered every storm together. Bad dates, client disasters, identity crises. She answered on the second ring. They did it again, I whispered. What happened? She asked softly. The retreat. 118 people, Grace. They rented extra properties. I wasn't invited. She was quiet for a moment, then said, That's not just hurtful. That's deliberate. That's cruelty disguised as tradition. Am I overreacting? I asked, though I already knew the answer. No, she said. They're punishing you for choosing a life they don't approve of. That's not your burden to carry. Her words landed hard because I knew she was right. Deep down, I had always known. My parents never forgave me for choosing art over business. For refusing to fit their mold. For building a life they didn't understand. But recognizing the truth didn't make it hurt less. That night, sleep refused to come. My mind spiraled through a greatest hits album of pain, my dad introducing all my siblings by title at Thanksgiving, but referring to me as Amber, still doing her art thing. My mom, at a brunch, saying, All I want is more grandbabies, though first Amber needs to find a husband. Little digs. Constant reminders. I wasn't measuring up. At 3 a.m., wide-eyed in bed, I finally broke. I called Amanda. I knew she'd be up feeding her newborn. Did you know I wasn't invited to Tahoe? I asked, no greeting. She paused, then said, Mom mentioned you were probably busy with work. Did you ask me if I was? Did anyone even check? Amber, you know how it is. Mom and Dad handle the guest list. It's their thing. They rented extra properties, Amanda, 118 people. Do you really believe they couldn't fit me? Another long pause. You know, maybe if you made more of an effort to stay connected to them. My breath caught in my throat. You mean if I had a job they respected? If I got married? Had kids? Would I earn my spot back then? That's not what I meant, she backpedaled. You did. And you know what? I'm tired of earning a seat at my own family's table. She tried to soften it. Why don't you call Mom tomorrow? Maybe it was just a misunderstanding. I hung up. Because it wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a message. And this time, I heard it loud and clear. But here's the thing. That moment of devastation, it was also the beginning of something new, something bold, something that would change everything. Morning broke through my window with golden light, streaming in like a quiet promise. I hadn't slept, not really, but I felt more awake than I had in weeks. As the city yawned to life beneath me, I brewed coffee and stared at the framed awards on my wall, the handwritten thank you notes from clients, the sketches pinned above my desk. I had spent years pretending I didn't care. That being excluded didn't hurt, that I didn't need them, but pretending hadn't worked, and I wasn't going to pretend anymore. That's when it hit me. If my family couldn't make room for me, I'd make my own space. Not just figuratively, literally. My first reaction, of course, was to blow up, to call my parents and let years of pain pour out of me in one unfiltered monologue. Or post the truth all over social media, expose them with screenshots and timelines, let the internet be my judge and jury. Or even wilder, show up to Lake Tahoe uninvited and force the confrontation I'd been avoiding my whole adult life. But I didn't, because as I stood in my tiny but beautiful apartment, coffee in one hand, photo of my grandparents in the other, I heard Grandma Eleanor's voice in my head. When people show you who they are, believe them the first time. She was quoting Maya Angelou, of course. She always did. But those words had never hit quite this hard before. My parents had shown me, over and over. I couldn't change them, but I could choose how I responded. So I opened my laptop, and instead of drafting a scathing text or a viral Facebook post, I typed in the words, "Luxury Rental Homes Lake Tahoe." At first, it was just curiosity, a fantasy. But then I saw it, Emerald Bay Estate. It practically sparkled on the screen. Sleek modern architecture, walls made of glass, panoramic lake views, 6 bedrooms, gourmet kitchen, private beach access. And the kicker? It was available the exact week of my family's retreat. I sucked in a breath. The rental price made my stomach churn. But then I remembered something. I'd been saving up for a condo down payment, a responsible next step, something practical, expected. But maybe this was more important right now. Still, I wasn't going to do it alone. I called Rachel. Rachel's not just a friend. She's a client, an event planner I helped rebrand last year. Logos, website, marketing materials. We clicked instantly and stayed close ever since. We met for lunch the next day at a tiny bistro in Hayes Valley, and as soon as I shared my idea, her eyes lit up. You want to host your own retreat? During the same week? Girl, I'm in. Not just a retreat, I explained, warming to the vision. A creative minds retreat. For people who get it. Artists, designers, writers, people who value authenticity. We'll make it gorgeous, Rachel said, already scrolling through her contacts. I know a private chef, a yoga instructor. I can help plan everything. We spent the afternoon dreaming out loud, meals from local chefs, outdoor workshops, boat tours, bonfires under the stars. I wanted it to feel like what the family retreats used to be. Before my parents turned them into networking galas. You'll need a brand, Rachel said. A website, social accounts, an air of exclusivity. I've got that part covered, I grinned. That night, I stayed up late designing the look and feel of the retreat. Deep lake blues, natural textures, bold typefaces. I named it the Creative Minds Retreat. The next day, I requested 2 weeks off from my studio, transferred funds, booked the property. Then came the guest list. Grace was first, obviously. Then, a few close friends from art school, a handful of design clients who'd become friends, my old college roommate and her husband. After some hesitation, I also included Heather and Jake, the only 2 siblings who'd ever shown even mild support for my career. I sent out sleek digital invites, custom, personal, intentional. Every name I added made me feel stronger. These were people who chose me, who saw my worth not through a lens of comparison, but through connection. Over the next week, I watched my retreat take shape. I built the website, sleek, immersive, inviting. Each workshop had its own page. Each guest received a beautifully branded RSVP package. I poured my heart into every pixel. I wasn't reacting anymore. I was creating. By the end of the second week, the momentum was undeniable. I had 22 confirmed guests. 22. People who said yes, not out of obligation or guilt or family politics, but because they wanted to be there, because they believed in what I was building, because they believed in me. And then came the replies that caught me off guard. Heather responded almost instantly after receiving her invite. "Amber, this looks incredible. Honestly, it sounds so much more my speed than the family circus. Count me in." Jake, ever the diplomat, sent a thoughtful email. "Hey, I really appreciate the invite. I'd love to support, but with the kids involved, I can't miss the family retreat this year. But I hope it's amazing. You deserve that." It was honest. It was kind. And it meant more than he probably realized. I was still riding the high of all that momentum when the logistics kicked in, and they kicked in hard. Securing the Emerald Bay estate was just step one. Now I had to transform it from luxury rental to immersive creative haven. That's when Rachel really stepped up. She became my event planning wingwoman. She worked her connections, calling in favors from caterers, photographers, yoga instructors, even a housekeeper who could handle daily cleanings. We weren't just putting together a retreat. We were building an experience. I worked 12-hour days to keep up with client work while planning the retreat by night. I was up at 2 a.m. sketching welcome basket designs, building workshop schedules, sending follow-up emails to ceramicists and creative journaling coaches. It was chaos, but it was mine. I chose every detail with intention. I handpicked each guest, each speaker, each activity. I designed everything down to the font on the printed itineraries. Miranda, a renowned ceramic artist, agreed to lead a pottery session on the back patio. Troy, a nature photographer, would guide guests on early morning hikes. Grace would facilitate creative journaling by candlelight. It wasn't just a getaway, it was a sanctuary, a celebration of creativity and worth. I wanted it to feel like what my grandparents had envisioned at Tahoe before the traditions became PR opportunities for my parents. Back when it was about connection, not appearances. Joy, not status. I thought of Grandma Eleanor walking barefoot through the garden with her mason jars of wildflowers. I thought of Grandpa Robert telling us stories about constellations as we sat wrapped in blankets on the dock. That's the feeling I wanted to recreate, a place where people felt seen. But the cost? Oh, it was real. Between the rental, catering, supplies, and paying my artists and instructors fairly, the money drained faster than I expected. I took on 2 extra branding projects to cover final deposits. I barely slept. I barely ate. And in the middle of it, those nasty little doubts started creeping back in. What if no one shows up? What if they think it's weird? What if this is all just a sad attempt to replicate something I never had? But then I'd get a message from one of my guests. "I haven't been this excited for anything in years." Or a DM like, "Amber, your invite made me feel special, like I belong somewhere." And I'd remember why I was doing this. Not to prove anything to my parents, but to create something beautiful, to claim my space. Everything was falling into place, until it all almost collapsed. Exactly 1 week before the retreat, disaster struck. The catering company, our primary food vendor, called and dropped a bombshell. "I'm so sorry, Miss Collins. We accidentally double-booked and can no longer accommodate your retreat." I froze. 22 guests, 5 days of meals, gone. I sank onto my apartment floor, surrounded by half-assembled welcome baskets, and just cried. For a long time. Then I called Grace. "I'm screwed," I said flatly. "I spent everything. Everyone's expecting gourmet meals. I have no backup." Grace, ever the steady one, stayed calm. "Okay, we fixed this. Give me a few hours." By that evening, she called me back with a lead. Sophia, a chef trained at the Culinary Institute of America, currently between private contracts. She'd seen the retreat website and loved the concept. "I've got the week open," Sophia told me on our first call. "And honestly, I'd love to cook for creatives for once, instead of corporate tech bros." I sent her the original menu. She tweaked it, elevated it, added touches that made the whole dining experience even better. The setback had turned into a secret weapon. Everything was back on track. And then it was time. The day before the retreat, I packed my car like I was preparing for a cross-country expedition. Every inch of trunk space was filled. Art supplies, branded journals, candle sets, ceramic name tags, locally made welcome treats, and enough string lights to make a Pinterest board weep. I drove out of San Francisco just after dawn, the fog trailing behind me like the weight of old pain finally lifting. As I wound up the mountain roads toward Lake Tahoe, something inside me shifted. This time, I wasn't heading toward someone else's tradition. I was creating my own. When I pulled into the circular driveway of the Emerald Bay Estate, it felt like something out of a movie. The afternoon light sparkled off the lake beyond the glass-walled living room. The house stood proudly against the landscape, modern and serene, just waiting to be filled with stories. The property manager greeted me with a clipboard and a smile, showed me where the backup generators were, how to control the ambient lighting, and then handed me the keys. And just like that, it was mine. For the next week, I was the host, the creator, the soul of this space. I walked through each room slowly, barefoot, letting the energy settle. Then I got to work. Welcome baskets first. Each guest would find theirs waiting in their room. Custom journals I designed with the Creative Minds Retreat logo, local wine, lavender soaps from a Tahoe artisan, hand-poured candles, chocolate truffles, and a handwritten note from me. For Heather, I slipped in a photo of the two of us as kids, painting on the porch with Grandpa Robert. Her smile in that picture was all teeth and innocence. So was mine. By sunset, the house glowed with warmth, literally and metaphorically. It felt like a space that saw people, that welcomed them, that said, "You belong here." Then my phone buzzed. It was a text from my mom. "Hope you're enjoying your summer, honey. Anything special planned for next week?" The message hit like a punch, not because of what it said, but because of what it revealed. They had no idea I knew. They assumed I'd still be clueless, still believing the not enough space lie. But I wasn't that girl anymore. I didn't respond. Instead, I snapped a photo of the lake glowing orange with sunset and posted it on Instagram. Let the Creative Minds Retreat begin, emerging from the shadows. I knew they'd see it. My siblings followed me. Word would spread, and for the first time, I didn't care. The next morning, the first guests began to arrive. Grace showed up first in her charmingly dented vintage Volvo, wearing oversized sunglasses and a scarf tied around her hair like she'd stepped out of a French film. Amber, this place. She stepped into the foyer and just stopped. "You've outdone yourself." She wasn't the only one. Troy and his partner David arrived minutes later, wheeling in camera gear and bottles of wine. Then Miranda with 2 pottery wheels and a mischievous grin. All afternoon, people trickled in. Friends I hadn't seen in years, clients who'd become confidants, old college roommates who still knew my coffee order. Every greeting felt like a tiny healing. The house buzzed with energy. Laughter floated through the air as people explored the space, marveled at the view, unpacked into their rooms, and discovered their welcome baskets. By late afternoon, the full crew had arrived, 22 creative souls. And then, Heather. She pulled up in a rental SUV, stepped out with wind-blown hair and wide eyes, and immediately pulled me into a hug. "Amber, this is beyond. I had no idea you were planning something like this." "I wasn't, until a few weeks ago," I said honestly. "Did anyone else from the family see your Instagram post?" she asked, her voice low. I nodded. "Probably. Blake texted me. Amanda's asking questions. Mom's suspicious, but I haven't responded." Heather nodded, her jaw tight. "I didn't tell them I was coming. I just said I'd be unavailable. I needed this. Thank you for inviting me." "Thank you for choosing me," I said. As the sun dipped low over the lake, Sophia arrived with her assistant and started prepping our welcome dinner. The kitchen came alive with the smells of rosemary and lemon and warm bread. We ate on the deck under a canopy of string lights, seated at one long table, wine glasses glinting, conversation flowing. It was everything I had dreamed, and more. After the meal, I stood and lifted my glass. To creativity, to connection, to choosing our own traditions, and to making space for ourselves, even when others won't. Glasses clinked. Candles flickered. And something inside me unlocked. This wasn't just a retreat. This was a reclamation. By sunrise the next day, the house had settled into a rhythm, like it had always been a retreat center for creatives. Our first morning started with sunrise yoga on the deck, led by David, who turned out to be not just Troy's partner but a certified instructor with a voice like honey. The lake shimmered behind us as we moved through poses, breath syncing with the stillness around us. After yoga, Sophia served a breakfast of fresh fruit, croissants, and quiche that could have been framed in a museum. People ate slowly, barefoot, wrapped in blankets, laughing between sips of coffee. Then the day unfolded, just as I had dreamed. Troy led a photo expedition, teaching guests how to capture light, texture, and emotion in nature. Miranda set up her pottery workshop on the back patio, helping people get their hands dirty. Clay spinning on wheels, laughter mixing with the hum of soft music. Inside, Grace hosted her creative journaling circle, complete with candles, prompts, and the kind of open-hearted vulnerability that makes time blur. And through it all, I floated from group to group, not overseeing, not managing, just being present, connected, whole. Everywhere I looked, people were thriving. I didn't check my phone much, but every time I did, the notifications had multiplied. Instagram DMs, text messages, missed calls. The first text came from Blake. "That place looks incredible. What's this retreat thing about?" Then Amanda, "Mom's asking why Heather is with you and not here, just FYI." I didn't respond. I wasn't hiding. I wasn't performing. I was just living. On the third day, something happened I didn't see coming. We just returned from a boat tour of the lake, 22 wind-blown, sun-drunk creatives with phones full of photos, when I saw her. Standing at the dock, wearing a wide-brimmed hat and a navy linen blouse, was an elegant woman with silver hair and piercing eyes. It took me a moment to register her. Great Aunt Eleanor, my grandmother's younger sister. "Aunt Eleanor," I called out, stunned. "I saw pictures of this place on that Instagram thing," she said with a sly smile. "Recognized the shoreline. Figured I'd check it out. I was supposed to be at your parents' gathering, but this looked far more interesting." At 84 years old, Eleanor was still the family's unofficial rebel. She'd been a journalist in the 60s when women were expected to stay quiet. She traveled the world solo before it was fashionable, and she loved my grandparents deeply. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, we sat out on the deck sharing a bottle of aged scotch she brought with her, the stars spread wide above us. "You know," she said, pouring another two-finger glass, "your grandparents would be proud of you." "You think so?" I asked, my voice breaking just a little. "Not just for this retreat," she said, waving her hand toward the house, "but for staying true to yourself, even when it cost you." Her words hit deeper than I expected. "They saw you," she added gently. "They knew. That spark you have, that way of seeing the world, they loved you for it, the way your parents never understood." Tears welled in my eyes. "I've tried so hard to make them proud," I confessed, "to be enough, and it's never felt like it mattered." Eleanor reached out, placed a hand over mine. "That's because some people's approval isn't worth chasing," she said firmly. "But you know who you are, and now, so does everyone else." I sat there in silence, the lake calm, the sky infinite. For the first time in a long time, I felt settled. The next day began like the others, quietly joyful, laughter over coffee, clay drying in the sun, music drifting from Bluetooth speakers in the kitchen as Sophia chopped herbs with rhythmic precision. But just before lunch, my phone buzzed. "Mom, calling." I let it go to voicemail. Then she called again and again. By the third ring, I excused myself from the patio and answered. "Amber, where are you?" Her voice was tight, controlled, nervous. "With guests," I replied evenly. "Where?" "Tahoe." There was silence. I could practically hear the wheels turning. "Eleanor was supposed to be at our retreat," she said, her voice sharp now. "She's not answering her phone." "She's here," I said. "With me." Another long pause. "What do you mean with you?" "I'm hosting my own retreat this week, Mom. A creative one. Eleanor decided to join us." "You're in Tahoe?" she repeated, stunned. "But we told you that there wasn't enough space." "Yes, I know." I kept my voice calm. "Turns out you invited 118 people and rented 2 extra houses." Silence again. "We need to talk about this," she said finally. "Your father and I are coming over." Before I could say anything, she'd hung up. I stood frozen for a moment. Then I took a deep breath and returned to the patio, where Grace immediately clocked my face. "What's wrong?" "My parents are coming," I said quietly. "They just found out where I am." Grace took my hand and squeezed. "We've got you, all of us." An hour later, their Mercedes pulled into the gravel driveway like a scene from a courtroom drama. I met them outside. I didn't want to disrupt the group session inside. Miranda was leading a beautiful clay glazing workshop. The last thing I needed was my parents barging in and turning this place into a therapy circle from hell. Mom stepped out first, eyes scanning the property like she was appraising it. "What is all this, Amber?" "It's a retreat, one I planned, for people who support my work." Dad joined her, adjusting his sunglasses and looking past me into the house. "You didn't even mention you were planning this." "Why would I? You didn't mention I wasn't invited to yours." That landed. Dad's jaw twitched. Mom crossed her arms. "We thought you'd be busy with work." "You didn't ask," I said. "You never ask. You assume. You exclude. You've done it for years." She opened her mouth, but I kept going. "You've made it clear I'm not part of the family the same way my siblings are. And this year, I stopped waiting for a seat at your table. I built my own." Dad looked past me again. Guests were sipping lemonade on the deck, laughing over glazing colors. "Who are all these people?" "Friends, colleagues, clients, people who see value in what I do, in who I am." "And Heather?" Mom asked, her voice softening slightly. "She's here because she chose to be." That made Mom blink, a chink in the armor. "Amber, if you felt excluded," she started. "I was excluded, repeatedly, and I stopped pretending otherwise." There was a beat of silence. Then Dad said something I never expected. "This is impressive, what you've done here." Not an apology, but from Richard Collins, it was practically a declaration of love. "Dinner is at 7, I said. "You're welcome to join us as guests, not as parents coming to talk sense into their daughter." They exchanged a look, uncertain, maybe even intrigued. I turned and walked back inside, back to my people, back to my world. Dinner that night was magical. Sophia served grilled halibut with citrus butter and roasted heirloom vegetables. The deck was alive with clinking glasses, flickering candles, and voices layered in laughter and vulnerability. My parents sat at the far end of the table, quiet, observing. They heard Miranda talk about her gallery opening in Berlin. They listened as Troy shared how he sold 3 photo prints to a magazine editor at breakfast. They watched Grace hand out custom poetry cards she had written for each guest. And slowly, I saw something shift. At the end of the night, as dessert was cleared, Mom turned to me. "Next year, we'll make sure there's space for you at the family retreat." I smiled. "Maybe, but I might be hosting my own again. This is kind of incredible." The next morning, texts started trickling in from the rest of my family. "Brian, didn't realize you were doing a retreat. Looks great. Would have been nice to be invited." Lily, "Wait, you're in Tahoe too?" Amanda, "Mom's kind of losing it, just giving you a heads up." I didn't reply to any of them right away. I wasn't trying to start a war. I was just done pretending. The most surprising reaction came that afternoon. We were in the middle of an open sketch session, people scattered across the deck, sketchbooks in their laps, the sun dancing off the lake, when I saw someone walking up the gravel path toward the house. Blake. He looked different. Not in a big way, still the crisp button-down, still the clean-cut haircut, but something in his shoulders seemed lighter. He waved awkwardly as I met him by the entrance. "I told Mom and Dad I needed a break from the noise," he said. "But really, I wanted to see what you've created here. It looks amazing online, better in person." I was stunned, but I kept my voice steady. "You're welcome to join us for dinner, or the journaling circle later if you want." He looked around the property, people painting, chatting, sharing materials. For a moment he looked like the kid I remembered, the one who used to build elaborate sandcastles with me at the lake, before everything got so rigid. "I'd like that," he said. That night, he sat between Troy and Grace. By the end of dinner, he was laughing louder than anyone else. As the retreat neared its end, something strange happened. I felt peace. No buzzing phone could shake it. No Instagram posts from the family retreat down the road could break it. We held a closing dinner on the second to last night. Sophia went all out. Roasted duck with cherry glaze, hand-rolled pasta, fresh peach tart with basil cream. Afterward, we gathered for our final circle in the great room. All 22 of us sitting on cushions, the fireplace glowing, tea steaming in mugs. Each guest shared a reflection, something they were taking with them. Some talked about new creative breakthroughs. Others mentioned the feeling of community, of being seen. One woman cried as she admitted she hadn't created anything in 3 years until this week. When it was my turn, I took a breath. I started this retreat because I was tired of waiting to be included. I thought it would be a one-time thing, something to prove a point. I looked around the room, eyes glistening, hearts wide open, but this has become something else, something bigger than my pain. You have become something beautiful. There was silence, then applause, tears, hugs. As people began to pack up the next morning, I found myself lingering on the deck, watching the golden sun rise over the lake. Then I heard the sound of tires on gravel again. I turned. My parents' SUV. This time they weren't alone. Amanda was with them. I met them outside, arms crossed loosely, heart steady. "We thought we'd help you pack," Mom said casually. "That's not necessary. We've got it covered." Amanda stepped forward. "Amber, can we talk? Just the four of us?" I paused, then nodded, leading them down a short path to the edge of the property near the garden. The air was crisp, quiet. "This has gotten out of hand," Amanda started. "You've made Mom and Dad feel terrible." "That wasn't the goal," I said honestly. "The goal was to stop pretending everything was okay." Mom opened her mouth. I raised a hand gently. "It wasn't about space. It was never about space." That's when Dad surprised me again. He looked me in the eye. "You're right." 3 words that sent something loose in my chest. "We have favored your siblings. We have dismissed your work. And that's on us." My mother blinked, startled. "Your retreat," he continued, "this event, these people, it's made me realize we've misunderstood you." He paused, the silence weighty. "I'm sorry, Amber." I didn't say anything for a long moment, just let it settle. Eventually, Amanda cleared her throat. "So, does this mean you'll come to the family retreat next year?" I met her eyes, calm and clear. "I'm not sure. I might host this again, or we could coordinate dates so they don't conflict. But I'm not choosing anymore between being seen and being silent." They nodded slowly. Then Mom did something I didn't expect. She reached for my hand. "We'd like to join your closing circle," she said. "If that's okay." It was. And so we walked back together toward the house, toward something new. Back inside, the final closing circle had already begun. Grace gave me a small nod as I re-entered, my parents and Amanda trailing quietly behind me. No one questioned their presence. No one made it awkward. They simply adjusted the circle, made space, and passed them mugs of tea. When it came time for my parents to speak, the room hushed with anticipation. My dad cleared his throat and adjusted his posture, as if about to present Q2 earnings. Then, softer than I'd ever heard him speak, he said, "I'm not used to being in rooms like this, where people talk about art and process and feelings. But I've seen things here I didn't expect. Passion, community, a kind of intelligence I didn't understand before." He glanced at me. I didn't know how much I was missing, until now. My mother followed, her voice a little wobbly but clear. "I always thought I had to keep the family organized, structured. That love meant making sure everyone fit into the same mold." She took a long breath. "But I see now how limiting that was. For you, for all of us. No fanfare, no applause. Just a quiet kind of honesty that didn't ask for anything in return." After the circle, as guests exchanged contact info and started loading bags into cars, my parents pulled me aside one last time. "We'd like to have you over next week," Mom said. "Just us, for dinner, no agenda." I nodded. "Okay, but just so you know, I'm not coming to prove anything. I won't be trying to earn space anymore." "We know," Dad replied. "Maybe it's us who need to change this time." They left shortly after, Amanda driving, but not before she gave me a tight hug and whispered, "Blake hasn't stopped talking about last night, said it's the most relaxed he's felt in years." I smiled but didn't respond. Some things didn't need commentary. The rest of the day moved in slow, lovely waves. Heather was one of the last to leave. She hugged me tight, lingering on the porch steps. "This was transformative," she said. "I forgot what it feels like to just create, to not perform." "You're welcome at my table anytime," I told her. "Next year," she added. "I'm bringing my own easel." Blake had decided to stay an extra day. We cleaned together in silence, gathering ceramic mugs and leftover supplies, loading them into boxes with that end-of-camp wistfulness that always follows something meaningful. As we rolled up cords and folded throw blankets, he looked at me and said, "Amber, I'm sorry." "For what?" "For not seeing it. For going along with it. For pretending you were fine when clearly you weren't." I studied his face. For the first time in years, I saw Blake, not the corporate lawyer, not Dad's prodigy, but my brother, the boy who used to build indoor forts with me and hide glitter in Jake's shoes. Maybe we all can do better moving forward, I said. He nodded. Yeah, I'd like that. That evening, I stood alone on the deck, the lake glassy and still beneath the setting sun. The house was quiet now. The last car had pulled away. The retreat was over, but its impact wasn't. I thought about the version of me who had gotten that text weeks ago. Sorry, honey, not enough space. And the version of me who had cried on the floor. Then I looked around at what I had created. Space, a magnificent space, built from nothing but self-worth, vision, and the courage to say no more. I had transformed exclusion into belonging, rejection into creation, pain into art. I closed my eyes and whispered a thank you, not just to the people who had shown up for me, but to the ones who hadn't, because without them, this space wouldn't exist. The drive back to San Francisco was quiet, the kind of silence that wraps around you not like loneliness, but like a warm exhale after something profound. Winding down the Tahoe roads, the retreat replayed in my mind. Every hug, every workshop, every spark of creativity that bloomed in that space I built from scratch. When I walked into my apartment, it felt different. Not physically. Nothing had changed. But energetically, the room carried something new. Something stronger. This was the place where I'd once cried after getting those exclusion texts. Now it was the place I returned to as someone who had rewritten the story. I unpacked slowly, set down the leftover journals, tucked away the printed retreat itineraries, smoothed the photo of me and Heather from childhood, and pinned it to the fridge with a quiet smile. The next day, emails began rolling in. Gratitude. Reflections, one after another. Troy secured a photography exhibition after showing his retreat shots to a gallery owner. Miranda landed 2 private commissions from guests who fell in love with her ceramic work. Grace started a group chat for Creative Minds alumni that was already buzzing with collaboration ideas and plans to meet again. What I had built wasn't just a one-time act of defiance. It was a community, a movement, a model for what's possible when you stop begging to be included in someone else's story and start writing your own. The following week, I went to dinner at my parents' house. It was quiet, formal at first, the kind of strained politeness you serve like a side dish next to roasted chicken. But slowly, conversation warmed. My dad, shockingly, asked real questions about my business. How do you decide which clients to take on? Do you have a project management tool you use? My mom even showed me a ceramic bowl she bought from a local artist, asking my opinion on the glaze. It's no Miranda, she joked, but it reminded me of your retreat. After dessert, Dad cleared his throat. We've been talking, he said, about the family retreat. I braced myself. We think it's gotten away from what your grandparents intended. Too big, too curated. Mom nodded. Next year, we want to scale it back. Just immediate family. More genuine. I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no either. Then came something that really surprised me. We'd like to attend your retreat next year, Dad said. Maybe just for a day or two, to see your world more fully. I blinked. That was a curveball, but a welcome one. I'd like that, I said simply. Over the next few months, life continued its strange, wonderful evolution. I started therapy with Dr. Michaels, who helped me unravel years of buried patterns. How being the different one had shaped my self-worth. How years of chasing approval had sharpened my ambition but also narrowed my joy. The retreat was a turning point, she said once. You stopped asking for space. You created it. Professionally, the ripple effects were seismic. The retreat was featured in a design publication as a model of creative community building. My studio inquiries doubled. I was invited to speak at 2 conferences. People wanted to learn how I did it, how I transformed exclusion into empowerment. Then, one crisp October morning, I got a call from Great-Aunt Eleanor. I've been thinking about the family property, she said. The Tahoe house? Yes. Your grandparents never meant for it to be a showcase. They meant for it to bring people together, to nurture creativity, like your retreat did. I held my breath. I've spoken with the family trust attorney, she continued. As the last remaining sibling, I've requested that 1 week each summer be reserved for a creative retreat, under your direction. I nearly dropped my coffee. Are you serious? I whispered. Dead serious. This is what they would have wanted. I was speechless. Then tearful. then overwhelmed by gratitude. The trust lawyer confirmed the arrangement the following week, and surprisingly, my parents didn't protest. Maybe it's time that house hosted something meaningful again, my dad said. Now, as I sit in my studio with planning notes for the next Creative Minds retreat, I can't help but reflect on the arc of the past year. It started with a text, not enough space, and ended with an estate, a legacy, a movement. If you've ever been made to feel like you're not enough, like you don't fit, like the life you're building is somehow less than, I hope you hear this. You do not need permission to take up space. You do not need a family's approval to create something beautiful. Sometimes the most powerful response to being left out is to build a space so magnificent that others long to be invited in, not from revenge, but from wholeness, from truth, from self-worth. Have you ever been excluded from family events or made to feel like the black sheep? How did you respond? Drop your story in the comments. I want to hear it. And if this video resonated with you, like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Remember, your worth is not defined by who overlooks you. It's defined by your courage to honor yourself anyway. Thank you for watching. I'm Amber Collins, and this time, I made my own space.